Hey everyone, welcome back to Branded. My name is Sarah. Today I want to talk about why some clients just seem to not get it and what that actually is telling us about our approach to the work. So, hear me out here. When you're on a client call and it feels like everything is just going really smoothly. You're explaining something that you know really well, and at the same time, it's going to change their business, right? It's super powerful for their business. They need to be hearing this information. But before you know it, you can see on the other side of the screen, right? If you're on a Zoom or something, and their eyes have just glazed over, they're totally distracted, and clearly they're just not getting it, or they just don't care, right? And this usually isn't because they're not smart enough to get it. It's because there's this level of depth that perhaps you have gotten to in your own business and in your personal life that they just haven't seen yet. They haven't approached that depth yet. So they really can't meet themselves at the same place that you're meeting yourself at. So it's almost like, quite literally, you're sort of just talking to a wall because that level of depth, that level of awareness, that level of perception, they maybe just haven't had it yet for themselves and for their business. So it is quite literally that they're just simply not ready to hear what you have to say. So that's why, I titled this episode Clients That Just Don't Get It, but what it teaches us about our approach is because it's okay if a client doesn't get it, and the same is true with your brand. It's okay if people just don't get it in the way that you are expecting them to get it. You can't expect someone to understand, value, and connect with your message in a really deep way if you're still speaking to an audience, that hasn't done the work yet to be ready to hear it. It'll just sort of fall on deaf ears. And the inspiration for this podcast episode was actually I was listening to the Audible of Mel Robbins' Let Them. And I know that I saw a bunch of hype for this book many months ago on Instagram, and I hadn't gotten around to listening to it. I've just been busy settling into our new home and things like that. And so finally I was like, I need to listen to an Audible because, for one, Audible keeps charging me for the credits and I keep not using them. So I'm like, I know I love it. Let me get back to it. So I chose to listen to Let Them by Mel Robbins. And there's a quote in the book where she says, people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. And she wasn't necessarily saying this from a business standpoint, but I immediately saw the truth in this, not as a self-help mantra, but as a business truth. It quite literally is so true that how deeply someone has met themselves determines how deeply they can meet your boundaries, your processes, your creativity, and your leadership. So you might be building your brand from a place of alignment and maturity, but if you're marketing to people that still are feeling a little bit stuck in survival mode, you'll constantly feel that sense of I'm unseen, I'm underpaid, and I'm misunderstood. We don't want that. So this is the interesting part, though, about this concept, this truth that people can only meet you as deeply as they've ever met themselves. The more grounded that you become in yourself, in your business, as a business owner, fewer people will actually meet you there. A lot fewer. But what's so amazing is the people that do meet you there, the resonance that happens is so powerful because they're ready to hear what you have to say. And there's a few places that this will show up in your business where you can sort of pinpoint okay, maybe I'm not having the right conversations with the right people in this area of my business, on and on, right? So a couple places this shows up is for sure in your client work. 100% you'll see this in client work. You can't make someone value strategy if what they're ready for is a surface level quick fix. You just can't. If I have a conversation with someone and they're like, I want a website, and I'm telling them, hey, you actually need systems on the back end to support that website. And they're like, no, I just want the website. I'm like, that's not going to really do you much good because that's just is basically a storefront to a store that's closed because nothing happens in the back end. It's just this pretty thing in the front. So if someone's not ready for strategy because all they want is a surface level fix, that's not going to be a good match, right? It's going to feel like the client just doesn't get it. But that's not really the thing, right? That the client's just not ready for that yet, perhaps. You can't make someone want transformation if they're still chasing like a quick win. This was something that back in my network marketing days that I saw all the time. All the time. Oh my gosh. Like you would be marketing to this mass group of people that's like, because it was weight loss stuff, because I myself had lost like 75 pounds and I was feeling amazing. So I knew the product worked and I'm like, I have to tell everyone. Well, guess what? Not everyone's ready to hear that message because some people just want the quick fix. They want to be told, oh, well, if you fast for 48 hours, you'll drop 10 pounds and then you can eat all the pizza and ice cream you want. It's a balance, right? And if people aren't ready to really hear what sort of transformation you have available for them and all they want is the quick fix, that's a mismatch. The fix isn't to lower your standards, all right? The fix is to align your offers, your messaging, and your process with the level of client who is ready to hear it. That's the fix. So yes, I know you want to help everybody. Yes, your services and your products, like anybody can benefit from it, but not everybody's ready for it. So there is absolutely no point in you wasting your breath and your time to convince somebody otherwise. If they're not ready to hear it, it's not going to be heard. Another place that this will show up, of course, the client work, like you'll see it. It'll be really obvious. A place that it shows up sometimes that's a little less obvious because you tend to like work through it a little longer than you should probably before saying, hey, maybe this isn't a good fit, is team members and collaborators. So if you've ever like delegated something and then immediately took it back, you're like, they can't do it. It's not right. It's usually because the person that you hired, they couldn't necessarily meet the standard of like the depth that you're looking for. And honestly, that's a really hard thing to do. And quite honestly, it's one of the reasons that I have yet to really hire somebody to help me with my business because there's this level of depth and sort of thought that I put into the work that I do. And that's really hard to translate to somebody like over the phone, over a Zoom, especially someone that I maybe don't know all that well and how they operate. So the fix here would not necessarily be micromanaging, but it would be to refine how you communicate expectations. And this is something I'm working on. That way I can bring in some help. If I know how to really accurately communicate what my expectations are, the depth that I'm looking for, the thought processes that I'm coming from, if I can really communicate that, then I can start finding people that have that depth that is mirroring mine. So instead of micromanaging and hiring people that you're like, they just can't get the job done and I feel like I have to manage them constantly. Okay, well, maybe they're not the right person for the job, but also what's your approach? How are you communicating those expectations? Are they clear? Maybe not. Sometimes people are just doing the best with the information they have. And you can't just assume that people know what you want. You have to say what you want. The other place that this misalignment of, oh, they're just not getting it will show up in your business is in your audience. As your brand starts to mature, this will happen organically on its own. As you stick with it and you stay consistent, your brand will mature. It will evolve weekly and daily, right? Because you're nurturing it. Your content has to evolve with it. So if you keep simplifying everything in your content to just make it like super relatable, because you're like, oh my God, I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall and I just want people to fucking hear this. Well, you're going to start attracting people who are really only there for the surface stuff. Like they want the DIY kind of content because they're not really ready to dig in and have the conversation of, okay, this will actually transform my business. So stick to like, stick to that gut feeling of, okay, my brand is maturing, my content needs to evolve. Let's go deeper. Let's speak to the people who are actually ready to hear this. So here's something that I've kind of started to do in my own business, and it's a little bit of a check-in, and being like willing to do these sort of moments of reflection weekly in my business has been so huge. For one, it helps me stay really connected to what I'm building, but also it helps me understand where there might be a disconnection, because that will just happen and it will continue happening if you don't notice it, right? If you're not aware enough to see what's going on. So here's a quick little check-in for anytime I'm feeling a little like misunderstood by my clients, by the people I'm collaborating with, or by my audience. I'll ask myself some questions. Am I approaching my work at the level I want to be met at? Or am I dumbing it down in order to be liked? That's a big one. It's really easy to want to follow all the trends. It's really easy to want to just sort of fall right in line and follow the path that everybody else is taking. But is that approaching your work at the level that you really want to be met at? Or is it simply you just falling into line, becoming one of the herd, contributing to the noise just so you can be liked? It's a really like brutally honest kind of question to ask yourself, but you have to be honest if you want to continue to be communicating and working with the people that actually get it. Another question I'll ask is, am I expecting depth from people who haven't shown they're even ready for it yet? This is something that I guarantee you have done in your regular life. Like, forget business for a second. Is there something you ask of people and you know they're not even ready? Like, they've shown they're not even ready, but you continuously keep expecting that level of depth and thought from them. This is the same thing in your business. You cannot be expecting someone to meet you where you're at if they have shown you otherwise. Now, eventually, perhaps, but right here, right now, if you have proof they've shown you they're not ready, you need to adjust your expectations and approach it differently. And the last thing I'll usually ask myself is, am I staying in rooms, projects, or partnerships that no longer match the depth that I'm operating from? An example of this is when I decided to step away from network marketing. It was hugely beneficial years ago when I started doing it. Quite literally, it changed my life. I dropped the weight. I met really incredible people. I learned a lot. But there was a moment where I had to be really honest with myself and say, do I want to still be in this room? Do I want to still be, participating in these projects? Do I still want these partnerships? And not because these aren't good people and these aren't good projects. No, it's simply that I had just grown in a different direction and it was no longer aligned to me. And I was staying there in order to sort of not hurt anybody's feelings or people please or just fulfill some sort of expectation. So I had to be really honest. Do I want to continue being in these spaces when there's a really large group of people that just aren't operating from the same depth as me anymore? And that's because there are so many people that were at the beginning stages of their own transformation while I had already sort of gone through the beginning stage. So I was ready. I needed to run, I needed to have a little bit of that separation from that sort of first phase of transformation because it was actually feeling like it was holding me back. It's crazy, right? But if you don't have these conversations with yourself, if you don't get really honest and allow yourself to have this sort of non-judgmental reflection, you're never going to find these things out about yourself. Misalignment is not always about poor systems or weak messaging. Sometimes it's simply that you've outgrown the level that you were at, period. So the next time that you find yourself feeling frustrated that you're like, ugh, they just don't freaking get it, whether it's your brand, your processes, your worth, right? Remember this. They might not be capable of meeting you there yet. So don't shrink. Keep leading from depth, from clarity, from integrity, so the people who are ready can find you. People can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. And your brand will always attract who you're being, not who you're explaining, right? So just remember, this sort of depth mismatch that can happen, it doesn't mean that they're not smart enough to get it or that you're doing something wrong. It might just be that there's a little bit of growing that has to happen from one of the sides because you guys just haven't locked eyes yet, That level of depth, it has to be mirrored for someone to be like, oh, I really, really get it. And this is why I don't market my business as like a turn and burn, fast websites, templates, all the things, because I want to work with people that want that level of depth in their business. I want to work with people that want the transformation and the systems and the understanding and the foundations, not just the pretty stuff. So if this episode hit home for you, feel free to share it with a friend who might be having that daily conversation with you, sending you that text message like, these people just don't fucking get it. What is wrong with them? Maybe this could be a little bit of a reminder to see it a little differently, adjust your approach, and understand that maybe they're just not ready to hear what you have to say yet. One day they will be, hopefully, right? I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll see you next week for a brand new one. Bye, guys.